Hi there, Dr. Carmen McGuinness here with you. So today we're going to talk about predictions that I have regarding personal change following the COVID pandemic stay-at-home orders. As time passes and we all begin to go out into the world again, hopefully not for several more weeks, if not months, please stay safe at home until then. But when we do, I think that there will be some long-time lasting changes. So I'll be right back with you to talk about that. Hi there, Dr. Carmen McGuinness back with you. So I'm going to start with the obvious ones. Nothing new here. We've all thought about no more shaking hands, right? Those days I think are definitely gone, and I'm okay with that. I mean, it's kind of funny. I've always been kind of I put my hand out there for the guys and shake and gratuitous hugs for the ladies and that sort of thing, but I think those days are done. So yes, the second one is gratuitous hugs. I think that those are over with. They're gone. And then I think it's going to be the end of sloppy sneezing and coughing. Now, we all know that sneezing and coughing on each other or on things or on our hands and then shake with someone else is not cool. But I don't think it's been terribly well managed by people at large, obviously, or we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. So I think that it will be the end of sloppy sneezing and coughing. I know myself, when I have had to go out into the world, buy groceries, things like that, if I even feel like I'm going to cough, I just try to choke it back because I don't want to disturb anyone. And God forbid, we don't know if we're carrying this thing around, so don't want to spread any of that. But I think we're all going to be a little bit more aware of that going forward. And then I think there's just going to be improved personal hygiene in general. I think we're all going to actually wash our hands when we go to the ladies' room and men's room, but we shall see. And I think we're also going to have some changes in how we perceive the environment as far as risks. I think there's going to be increased caution around where we put down our phones and purses and wallets and sunglasses and keys and things like that. And I think that there's going to be continued caution around mail and other sorts of packaging. I know in my house I have a 48-hour detox box where I put things because supposedly this only lives on surfaces for 48 hours. When we have vaccines and a year and a half from now when this is over with, I probably will not be quite as cautious in that area, but I also probably will wash my hands after I open the mail, which I didn't used to do. And on the social front, quite a lot here. I think that we're going to have a new appreciation of our service providers. I've always been someone who deeply appreciates service providers. My mother, who was a trained accountant a million years ago, my mom was 41 when I was born, and I'm not young. So for her to have been trained as an accountant back then it was a big deal back then. But she in fact raised 4 children, not myself, this was way before me, by working as a waitress, because as an accountant back then she would have just got secretarial wages, even though she was a trained accountant, a CPA. And so I think we're all going to start to be more like I am and appreciate our wait staff and the people at the baristas at the coffee shop and the people at the checkout line, because they're now essential workers. They're frontline providers now. And I think we're going to have an increased value of eye contact. I've noticed that when I go out in public now, people tend not to make eye contact. We've got these masks on and we're going to step away from each other. So it's kind of awkward to like make eye contact, big smiling eyes, right? You can't see my face, and then inch away from you. So we're just sort of avoiding each other's eyes right now. And I think there's going to be more eye contact. I remember, it was about 6 months ago, I was in a Starbucks and a woman placed her whole order. I think I mentioned this in another video on some other topic. Placed her whole order without even looking up. And the barista was so nice to her, lovely barista who I know well, was so nice to her, and she never even looked at her. She might have said thank you, but it was so gratuitous. It wasn't a real thank you. So I think there's going to be a lot more eye contact going on. I think there's going to be an increase in friendliness and kindness to others in general when this is over. I think we've learned to appreciate one another more than we used to. And I think we'll begin to think more deeply about the relationship between young and old. When we walk out into the world right now, we look at very young people as potential carriers and very old people as being highly vulnerable. And I'm kind of in the middle, inching my way toward very old, but I'm definitely in the middle of that. So I just sort of look around and think, everybody's got a role in this new world. It's kind of different. So I think there's going to be a lot more thought about what old people, the appreciation that old people have for younger people and that younger people have for older people. And I probably need to fine-tune that thinking a little bit, but I know it's going to be different going forward. I feel that it will be different. And then on the dating and relationship scene, which is what I used to talk about a lot before this one. On the dating and relationship scene, I think we're going to see a huge decline in one-night stands. And we started to see this after the AIDS epidemic. In the 80s, the mid-80s. And then I think we've fallen back a little bit, but I think this is going to kind of stop the one-night stand thing. It's one thing to sit, when the bars open up again and we all start going out and mingling. It's one thing to sit a bar stool away from someone. It's quite another thing to bring them home and share body fluids. And then I think there's going to be much more caution around who we actually choose for long-term partners, not because of the body fluids, but because of being potentially cooped up with them for a long time at some point in the future if this or another virus brings on another stay-at-home order. So I think people are going to think more deeply about who they want to actually be home alone with. But I also, at the same time, I think there's going to be a decline in impulse breakups. I think, if you're thinking of breaking up with your spouse and then it's like, oh, wait, no, then I'll be completely alone. There might be more thought about who we partner with and how we partner and how long we want it to last, what the relationship actually is, and how willing we are to break up. And some thoughts on commerce. Let me just check my time here. Sorry. Okay, I'm doing good. Some thoughts on commerce. I think that there's, and this one's probably really obvious too, I think there's going to be a lot more internet commerce. Now that we all know how to shop online and get whatever we need like that, I was pretty good at it before, but I'm a real pro right now. So I do think that we're going to rely on internet commerce a lot more than we used to. Sure, I can't wait for the day when I can go to a mall. I used to joke about things. Get a sip of my drink. Ooh. I've been making these fruit juicy things with fruits in my garden. It's wonderful. A little bit of stevia to sweeten it. So yes, I used to joke about, I'd say, oh yeah, I got to do this, I got to do that. It keeps me out of the malls. People say it keeps me off the streets. For me, it keeps me out of the malls. I love a mall. There's something about, the controlled temperature and being able to see other people but not really having to interact much with them. It's just kind of like a walking meditation for me to go into a mall, and I may or may not buy something. And I like watching families and people interacting. So I can't wait to go back to the mall, but I think my commerce will continue to be more online. Um, and then I think we're going to have a renewed practice of stocking up. So I mentioned my mother earlier, and obviously, well, it's not obvious. She might have married a much younger man, but she didn't. She married my dad, who I think was a year older than her. And they were children of the Depression. So they were very small children during the Depression. So both of them understood, and it never went away, the value of having enough stuff around. They were not hoarders, but we always had enough stuff. And I think that was contributed to because we had a home on an island, a summer home on Lake Winnipesaukee, and we lived in Italy and in the country in Italy. So whenever we would do a shop, it was a big shop. Lots of stuff, lots of toilet paper. I wish I had some of Mom's toilet paper right now. Lots of paper towels, staples, all the jars of things that you need. And then we would do small shops, fresh vegetables and meats in between. I think there is going to be a renewal of that. I know for myself, I've started to, because I've decided I'm not venturing out into the world until this really is over or closer to over. I've started to look into other things that I need to stock up on, like light bulbs and batteries, things that maybe weren't essential when this started, certainly not like food is, but I've started to look into other things as well and find other sources for it. So I think we're going to have a renewed sense of the importance of having enough stuff on hand. And I think there's just going to be less waste. We've all, throughout, I know I made several masks. I think last week I put up a picture of me with my froggy mask on. I also made a puppy mask. And now I've ordered some real masks, as my daughter calls them, the kind with filters. But I think that we're going to remember that when this is over, we're going to remember that when it was happening, we were looking around the house for things we could use to do things like make masks. And, other little things like, Mom, do you have a Sharpie? I did have a Sharpie. It might be at the office. Nope, no Sharpie. So I think there's going to be less, sort of that Sharpie's almost out of ink. I'm going to throw it away. I think there's going to be less of that. And then increased value in the space between us, such as in lines, in restaurants, and in theaters, I think is going to stick with us at least for a while. And I really hope it sticks with us for longer than a while. I know that I'm someone that if I can smell your cologne, you're too close to me. Unless we're buddies and we're out on a date or something great like that. I just don't like to be all that. I don't like to have people within my aura, within my space. So, and I don't. Who likes to wait in line for a restaurant? Nobody. I mean, there is nobody that loves waiting in line. So I think we're going to really start to appreciate that even more than we appreciated it before. And we're going to start to notice if things are crowded again. And I think there's going to be a new way of thinking about sustainability. I'll give you some examples of that. Hairstyles, there's been all kinds of people. I know I colored my hair the other day and it's like 2 shades darker than it should be. You probably already noticed. Do I need to color my hair? Maybe I should just let my hair go its natural color as I age. I don't know. I mean, for me, that's now an issue that I hadn't really thought about before. I have other friends who have short hair and short, cute hairstyles that they're starting to think, maybe I just need to let my hair grow out. My hair could go, if the ends get ragged, I'll just literally trim them, and it'll look pretty much the same as it looks now. Oh, my hairstylist, Michelle, if you're watching, it definitely won't look as good as if you did it, but my point is, it doesn't need a regular every 3 or 4 week trim like short styles do. So sustainability of hairstyles, sustainability of bigger, more important things like jobs. People are now thinking, wow, I guess I was really dispensable. So many people, so many people. So I think there's going to be a lot of retraining, a lot of job retraining, and really thinking about, is this something I could do at home if I had to? I know my daughter is a theater major, and she's giving some thought to that. She's thinking, maybe I need to look into maybe also being a theater teacher, because I could teach at home, or maybe doing something else. And then education, sustainability of education. I own a private school for children with disabilities, and I'm currently working on a white paper for, the shift in roles here from teacher to parent. I was quickly able to get my school up online on a Canvas, a little plug for Canvas platform, because I took college courses online, and I taught university students. I taught master's and doctoral students online, so I know how to do that. But there are, I'm not going to name names, but there are several schools here in Orlando that are struggling with that. They're giving out packets. They're on less hardy platforms trying to get things out to kids, and I commend them for trying. But I think parents, when they're looking for private and public education, they're going to be looking at the sustainability, and I think schools will be looking at the sustainability of what they do. This is great what we're doing, but could we do it online? And then just, services in general. For instance, I have a pool service that comes and a lawn service that comes. How sustainable is that? So I've heard from other people, not my providers, but I've heard that a friend of mine, her lawn service is going to have to stop coming, not because he doesn't need the money, but because he's doing lawns and nobody's paying him. She's paying him, but it's no longer sustainable for him to do that job when only a handful of people are paying him. So he's looking for other things to do. And, this is very sad. So this affects not just sustainability of his job, but also sustainability of hiring particular people. How sustainable is this company? Is this company still going to be there with me if there is another event like this? So I do believe that the economy will shrink. And I don't believe that that's necessarily a bad thing. I understand that today there are people who get a portion of their income through their investment in the broad economy. And I understand that this will be difficult for those people. But if the economy shrinks, if you look at everything else about the economy, is that necessarily bad? And some of it I've talked about. Lines, how big do restaurants need to be? How close do we need to be in restaurants? How close do we need to be in airlines, in planes? I think this is going to be an issue going forward. And speaking of education and jobs, which I was just talking about, I think that there's going to be an increased use of virtual instruction. As many parents who are complaining about the new format, and I don't blame them, I get it, there are people who love it. They always worked from home, and they like having their kids at home. I'm currently running a survey through my school, and one of the things that I've seen that is a delight to me is parents are saying, as far as the perks of the current situation, the positive aspects, they're saying that they have increased time for shared interests with their children, which I think is fabulous. Just spending time This is a bonding thing. When babies are little and we spend time with them, it's about shared time over things, a toy, facial expressions, whatever it is. So to see this happening anew with families, I think is a treasure. And then I think another thing, speaking of education and jobs, is that everybody's going to want to work from home now. I mean, sure, there are maybe some extroverts and theater people like my daughter who won't want to work from home, but wow, it's there's something to be said for working from home. I've been doing it for years. Part of my work is at home, and part of it obviously is in a school and in a psychology clinic. And speaking of that, I have a HIPAA platform where I see psychology clients, and have done for 3 years now, online, in addition to my clinic. Some of my local clients who I would see in the clinic were reticent about joining me on the HIPAA Secure platform. It's a video platform. It is face-to-face. We do have, that nearness. I'm probably facially nearer to you now than I would be in my clinic. I would be way back there. So some of them were reticent, and I offered a free session to them to see if it was a fit for them. And now I have several of them on board seeing me on my HIPAA Secure platform, which is awesome for them and for me. So politically, let's talk a little bit about politically. Politically, I think we're going to see a focus on overpopulation, where climate control has been an issue for a while, and it needs to continue to be, because my understanding is that climate control is part of the problem. I think we are going to see also a conversation about population control. And this is something that we saw, I want to say it was a lead up to the change of the millennia. It was in the late 1990s when there was a lot of conversation about worldwide population getting out of control, and then it just sort of died away. I think we're going to see a resurgence of that. As we get through this and we look back at what happened, I think we're going to see that the most populated places were the places that suffered the worst. And, my garden here is a perfect example. My house is way back there. My neighbors are over there and way over there. And, I can sit in my front garden on my bench out front, the other side of the house, and talk to neighbors who are passing, walking dogs and, just walking, and not have to worry about social distancing because they're way over there and I'm way over here. But I have friends who live in New York City, and this is nothing bad about New York City. I love cities, believe me, I do. But I also recognize that they can be dangerous places in many ways, and in ways that we hadn't thought of before, maybe. I have friends who live in the city who step outside their house, and nice houses, and they're right there. If they don't mind where they're walking, they're going to walk into someone. So I think we're going to think more about overpopulation and about where we live, whether we live in highly populated places. I think there will be a lot of movement around the globe when this is over. I think there's going to be also a raised consciousness about the interdependence of nations. I know a lot of futurists are saying that there's going to be a raise in nationalism. I'm not seeing it. The United States president might have an unfortunate raise in nationalism, but I don't, and I don't think that the majority of people do. I think that we now understand that if we take money away from the World Health Organization, they will get sick, and then we will get sick. Whereas before, maybe we knew that they would get sick, and many of us, myself included, were concerned just about that because they're people, just like we are. Now I think we're also going to think, wait a minute, if they get sick, we're going to get sick. So I think there's going to be a raised consciousness around the interdependence of nations, more of a one world ideology, which I think is a very good thing. And I think there's going to be a better understanding of the importance of government. We have seen a massive failure of government through this, and I think we are all going to think much more deeply about who we vote for, whether we vote, number one, and who we vote for, number two. And on a personal front, not me personally, but us personally, personal people, I think there's going to be an increased value for our relationships with ourselves. And I've talked a lot about this on this channel back when I used to just get to talk about relationships. I would do a little plug and say on this channel we talk about relationships of all sorts, including the relationship we have with ourselves. And I think that there's going to be an increased value in who I am, how I feel, how I entertain myself when I'm alone with me, and what I think about things. I think there's going to be a renewal of self-help work, what is today called working on yourself. We should just call it self-help. Now people say I'm working on myself. That's good. That's a good thing. And I think there's going to be a renewal of that. And I think there's going to be a deep appreciation of nature that we're all going to experience. Many of us already did. I know even me, who I spend all of my time outside. I'm looking at a pink grapefruit tree that I planted 18 years ago, and morning glories over there that I check on every morning. Behind me are my jasmines that I planted and trained up over my gazebo. So I'm a nature person to begin with, but I think even I have a renewed appreciation of that. I understand, well, as the old saying goes, nature, time, and patience are the best physician. I think that's very true. And speaking of time, I believe we will view time differently. We're going to be wanting more of it for ourselves, I think, when we come out of this. Even though right now we would love nothing more than to be with a friend or a loved one, I think we're going to really look back and realize that I do need that time alone. And time for our families as well. The families who actually live in our homes, I mean. Time to actually be with them and not trying to do something else while we're with them. So yes, I think we're going to appreciate time more and think differently about it. But I also think that we're going to have a different understanding of time. And it may not be easy to put into words. The thing that I thought of this morning is that for me, time now it's more like a video clip. Now, I'm a video editor. It's one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing as a hobby. But I feel like when you edit a video, you have sequences that you can put in order. And that's more how I feel about my day now. My day isn't just, it starts now and I have to run to the end of it. It's more like I can arrange things. Oh, I have a very big bug here. Sorry. It's more like I can arrange my day and plan it. And then if something comes out of sequence, that's okay. Yes, I still have things that are scheduled, like client sessions online and staff meetings with my school teachers. But for the most part, I can arrange my day myself. And it's much more plastic than it used to be. It can move around a little bit. Time doesn't feel quite as sequential as it used to feel. And patience, I believe we will all have much more patience going forward. I certainly hope so. I mean, when you think about, that guy in front of you who didn't move forward when the light turned red or green, I do have that down, didn't move forward right away and you would honk your horn. I mean, some of us never did things like that, but those of us who did, I think, are going to think more about it was just a second. It didn't really matter. And the very last thing is also, excuse me, chewing ice. The very last thing that I want to talk about is also a lead-in to what I'm going to talk about next week. Ego. I believe that many of us have come to see the borders around our own ego. We've noticed when we're being truly us versus when we're being that person that we want everyone to believe that we are. Next week, I'll talk quite a lot about that, and I'll offer some suggestions for digging into that just a little bit deeper. So I sincerely hope that this has been helpful. I know it was a lot and it was pretty long, but I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to seeing you on a Wednesday for my midweek sneak peek. See you soon.